Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here today with another episode of The Journey Within. I am your host, Andrea Escobar Logreira, spiritual guide and intuitive. Each week, we get to connect with different healers, storytellers, and vision holders as they walk us through their journey within, their dark night of the soul experience, and how they transformed their rock bottoms into magic. Now, I'm super excited about today's guest. We have the magical Maria Henning, self-trust and intuition mentor, human design reader. She's a dancer, yogi, and overall inspiring badass. Welcome, Maria. We are so excited to have you here today with us.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun already to chat. So I'm very happy to be here and share all the things.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Selfishly, I am like super pumped to ask a bunch of questions. You're Hispanic, so there's a lot kind of going on there. Before we start and we dive into your background and your upbringing, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, for sure. Happy to. So hi, everyone. Hi, wherever you're watching from. I hope you're having a good day. My name is Maria Henning. And what I do, like Andrea was saying, I teach women how to connect with their intuition and trust themselves. That's part of the work that I do. That's really feels like it's like my soul work, like what I'm super excited to create. And that stems a little bit from my rock bottom, which we'll chat about. And the other side of what I do is all things human design. So human design is not only an amazing way to teach you how to trust yourself, because it's literally giving you like a map of your energetic makeup and telling you how you're best aligned to make decisions and all of that amazing stuff. It also can tell you a lot of other things about your life. And as a true manifesting generator, I am interested in many things, like business, like manifestation, like all the things. And human design is the world, I like to say it's the world's most interesting rabbit hole, the world's most deep, intense rabbit hole. So it gives me a lot of stuff to play with and learn about. And so, yeah, I guide you through using human design to trust yourself, or we can chat about business, we can chat about manifestation, we can chat about energy management, all that good stuff. And of course, I do other things as well, but this is what I'm focused on right now.
Dude, that is so awesome. I'm like so curious as to how it all kind of connected together, because I feel like one puzzle piece drops and then the other one before you have the entire puzzle and you're like, okay, now I can start assembling it. So I'm super curious as to where it all began. So take us back. You grew up, well, I mean, you were born in Venezuela.
Yeah, that's right. So I was born in Venezuela. I was born in Caracas, in the capital. And in 2001, so I was 7, we moved to Houston, Texas. And a few years ago, discovered that we could have moved to New York City or Australia. And I was like, I could have that would have been cool. But I think out of all the places, probably Houston was the best place to grow up. And I'm very excited to have grown up in Houston. I'm a very proud Texan now. But yeah, so I moved to Houston in 2001. I ended up going to school out of state, but moved back and lived there after I graduated. I studied marine science. So totally different, out of left field. Again, a true manifesting generator style of being interested in all the things. And I just got emailed the other day that my research is still being published into papers. So it's like really cool that my marine science self can still be, creating amazing stuff, but even though I'm totally not part of that world anymore. And as of 2 months ago, I moved to Munich, Germany, because this is where my boyfriend lives. So it took me a while to get here, but thankfully I got here. So that's where I'm at now.
Dude, that is so exciting.
Yeah.
Marine biology. So I'm so intrigued on that. I saw that you were like doing research on oysters and different things like that.
Yeah. So what my research was on specifically was greenhouse gas cycling associated with oyster microbiomes. So to break that down really simply, oysters have 2 places in their bodies that are affecting how greenhouse gases work in the water, and both of those places has a different impact. And we were the first people to separate that and see, like, what does this one microbiome do? What does this microbiome do? And how does it actually affect greenhouse gas cycling and silica cycling and all these other amazing things? But as somebody who was super interested in the ocean growing up, and like I literally was like scuba certified since I was 10, and like, was very passionate, continue to be super passionate about the environment, sort of stewardship. It was really my dream, like, to study marine science. And then I realized it was not my dream to work in marine science. So those are two very different things. I love to learn about it, but pipetting in a lab for 12 hours a day in a basement was so not my jam. So it was very fun because I got to listen to tons of podcasts and learn, but it wasn't like, okay, the way that I like to say it is I like to solve problems, and scientists don't really solve problems. They set up the foundation of knowledge that you need to solve the problem. So other people take my research and they solve problems, but I'm not the one solving the problem. I'm giving them the information that they need to solve the problem. So that's the way I like to break it down. So I love my time as a scientist, but it's more fun to be creatively problem solving now.
I love how you break that down and you like bring everything more into just more basic terms. You have a really good gift for that, which is really cool. And I'm sure that plays into your MG style. I love that you keep saying how, no, it's true. And we're going to dive deeper into the energy types, but I'm an MG too. And that was something I had a lot of shadow around for the longest time because I dabbled into everything. And then once I'm no longer excited, I just put it down and I go into the next thing. So as a kid, my family would make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, what are you going to pick up now? What new hobby do you have now?" And I just like I like jump in so strong. And then after all, I'm like, this is not fun anymore. I need something else to stimulate me. Yeah.
Exactly. You jump in all the way, you burn all the energy. That's the manifesting generator cycle. That's how manifestors also work. It's the same cycle, right? Where you're like, I'm ready for something new. And then when you're ready to do it, you just do. And then you're like, all right, fuck it.
Yes.
And as you were saying, like I also taught yoga for 7 years. I was a dancer for like 18 years. Like I've done all these, I was in the opera as a kid. It's like, I've done all these things, right? And it's like, that's awesome. Like, and people, right? So people, I used to be really like embarrassed about that because the world tells you like, find that one thing that you love and just do it forever. And it's like, that's great advice for like half the population, but not for the rest of us, And so it can feel very frustrating. It's like, what's my one thing? And I want to find my one thing. I was doing a reader with a manifestor, another Capricorn manifestor. We have that same incarnation cross, which we'll talk about maybe later if we get to it, but I thought that was interesting. And she's like, I just want to find my one thing. I'm like, honey, you will never find your one thing. You will find so many things, and that's actually super cool. That's your superpower, right? And so for us as MGs as well, that's our superpower. We can do all these different things. We do them so quickly. We get into them and then really move on, So it's funny that you're introducing me as like intuition and self-trust, and I'm like, I'm kind of moving on to other things as well, I'm like, I'm ready to sort of like still expanding that, but not so much in maybe so much the coaching space, but in different spaces. So it's like, even that title already feels a little bit old, So, and it's just how manifesting generators work and how manifestors work.
I want to right now, like go into your rock bottom, but then I also want to ask a question real quick that I just got out of this. So with everything that you're saying right now, you're like speaking to my soul. I'm like, oh my God, yes, that's exactly me. Yeah. But then my biggest struggle in life is putting a label, what you just said, because I like get bored of them. Like I identify with it for like a week and then I'm just like, no,
Yep.
I just don't feel this anymore. And my biggest struggle has been trying to market myself, because if I'm talking to you and I'm picking up the energy of whatever it is, then I say one thing. But if I'm talking to someone else, I'll pick up something else and I'll say a different thing. So I'm like, it's really hard to write that down when it changes literally 20 times in a week.
Yeah. Do you have an Open G Center? Do you know?
I don't know. That's we'll go into that later. But it was funny that you were saying that, because I'm just like,
yes. And what I'll say to manifestors and MGs, this might not always be correct for you. I wouldn't want to look at your type, but what I decided for myself was like, my Instagram name is going to be my name, because I know that I'm going to create like so many different things. And Maria Henning wasn't available, but the next best thing was by Maria Henning, right? Because everything that I create is going to be by Maria Henning, right? And I've already like updated my title and all that stuff like once or twice, and it's like, all right, like what's next? Like I'm ready for the next thing, So. And I think that that's okay. It's okay. You want an audience that's going to be enrolled in you and not in like your title and the thing that they're like, they want you and your energy and your authenticity and all of that good stuff. So Yeah.
Love that. I love that you're saying that. Man, we'll dive deeper into that and all the types for everyone else later. But going back to your story, so you graduated, you realized that you didn't want to be in a lab. What kind of happened there? Walk us through all of that, and before kind of starting to feel more, okay, I know kind of where I'm headed now.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I have like a typical / like not typical like post-grad story, and like as sort of, at least when I look around at my friends, I graduated at this time of, these decades, this past decade or so. So yeah, so what happened, so I went to school in Boston, and I was determined to stay there, but Boston is quite expensive. And I knew as a marine science person, I was like, well, that's not gonna make me any money, and so basically what happened was, two things happened. Number one, I have 3 brothers, and 3 of us were graduating at the same time. And so my parents were like, don't get jobs. Two of us, as my older brother and I, were both graduating college, and they were like, don't get jobs. We wanna spend the summer with you guys. Like, don't get jobs. And so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna apply for jobs, I guess. Total horrible thing, because I spent the whole summer like having a blast, and then when it came time to apply for jobs, I felt so behind. Was that like a horrible thing? Obviously not. Like, it's great that I got to spend the summer with my family, but it made for a very stressful time when I got back to trying to apply for jobs. And then to cut a long story short, I didn't end up moving to Boston because I found myself being like, oh, if I can just be a science teacher and a yoga teacher and work at the front desk and live in a really shitty place with like 5 other people, then I can rope enough together to make it to Boston. I was like, fuck that. That sounds like so terrible. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be going to Cambridge one day and Boston the next. I was like, I don't want to live in Boston that bad. I was like, whatever. I love Boston. That was great. But like, I'm fine. I don't need to do that. And then came time to get jobs. Because I was already a yoga instructor, I ended up just walking over to the nearby Pilates studio and getting a job at the front desk there. And from there came a lot of years of being very frustrated. Like, what's the thing that I'm going to do? I don't do marine science anymore. I got super close to getting a marine science job, and they didn't hire me because I was a woman, and it was a job at the Port of Houston, which makes sense. I wouldn't want to work at the Port of Houston as a woman anyways, but it was like really just frustrating. Okay, I then moved on to Apple retail. I worked at the Apple store, and then I had this dream. I was like, oh, if I work here long enough, I can go to Apple corporate. I love tech and blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, do I want to work at the fucking Apple store for like 5 years? I was like, fuck no, like, I don't want to do that. I worked at an architecture firm. I was like, okay, maybe if I work here and I can do like sustainable design. Like, it was just so fucking random, very frustrating, because I was like, what's that one thing that I'm gonna do, right? But also because I hate working for other people, and I love to work for myself, and I love to have my own thing and create and be very autonomous and freedom. But I just I didn't have the confidence yet to sort of get to that place. And finally, the last place on that job hunting ladder, right before essentially I still work for myself after this, or I still work for the people after this, but the Apple store was when I hit rock bottom, not because of the Apple store, but because of that particular time. Ended up still doing some other random things, but they all kept getting better and leading up to where I'm at now, where I work for myself. But yeah, so it was a very frustrating couple of years. Just very frustrated. Like, I did all this amazing stuff in school, and school felt so easy, and there was so much structure, and I loved it, and it gave me so much energy. And then it was the ego, right? I graduated top of my class. Like, I have honors. I published papers. Nobody cares about this. You know what I mean? Like, nobody fucking cares that I have all this shit. Like, nobody wants to hire me. It was so frustrating, So yeah, that was my post-grad experience. 4 years of frustration before finally being like, no, what do I want to do? Work for myself. Let me just do it. I don't even know how I'm going to do this, but let me just do it. I hated it. It was like 4 years of like, I'm done working for other people. Yeah.
Like, wow. It's just, I can relate so much to what you're saying. And I feel like so many people can. We're looking for that one thing. And especially now in the time that we live in with Instagram and everything, that's so we can see everyone's lives, and so-and-so made it and so did this, that it's like, I can't imagine, especially like you were saying, that egoic kind of voice, and then also that you are very like, all right, what's next, what's next, what's next, and now having this, I don't know what's next.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially because for so long I was like marine science, like that's my thing, you know what I mean? Because I was interested in it as a kid, like my whole life, you know what I mean? I felt like I was one of those rare people that knew very young what they wanted to do. So then when that wasn't the case, it was like a total like rug pulled out from under me, because I was like, wait, but I've been obsessed with the ocean since I was a kid. And then I realized, of course, now looking back, it's because it's like so different all the time. It was like scuba diving sometimes, and then like going to SeaWorld camp sometimes, and like learning about coral reefs, and then learning about marine mammals, and blah, blah, blah. You know, it was like all these different things that was super fun. And that's because it was fun to learn. I didn't want to work in it, but it was fun to learn. Like I was excited to learn it. You know what I mean? And so then when I sort of left, it was just like, okay, I thought that was my one thing. Like, what actually is my one thing? And like, my identity was like so wrapped up into like, I am a marine scientist. Very, very like, yeah, like I'm like very arrogant. I remember looking back like, I'm a scientist, you know what I mean? And feeling very proud to say that, and as if that was some like amazing thing. I think scientists are amazing. If you're a scientist, don't be upset. But I really thought it made me like this like elite person. Like I'm so intellectual and like blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all right, whatever. That was the time. And then it wasn't for me work-wise. But yeah, it was I know that for me, I don't have a one thing except working for myself. That's my thing. It's working for myself, having a business. And that will look a lot of different ways as I grow.
I love that you're saying that and you're able to recognize that. I feel like it takes a lot of people some time to recognize, okay, what do I rather do? Do I want to work for myself, or do I want to work for other people? And I used to think that I wanted to work for other people, but then I worked for, my mom had a spa growing up, and I worked with for her for a couple of years before moving back to the States. And I just saw how much like effort she put, but it was hers. She wasn't doing it for someone else. And that just stuck with me. I was like, if I'm going to literally kill myself for something, I want it to be for me, not for someone else that at the end of the day, I'm just another person on their payroll. And it's not trying to, if you want to work for someone, I feel like everyone has their own like groove. Don't feel like not working for yourself is bad or shameful or anything. It's
for sure. Totally. I love the way that Heather Whitaker says this. Heather Whitaker, a TBM person.
Oh, what did she say?
She was like, I always felt, she talked about the opposite, where she felt a lot of shame because everybody was like, do your own thing, start your own business. And the way she I love that. She was like, I don't want to work for myself. I'm perfectly happy being the CEO of someone else's company. I was like, that's amazing. I love that. I love that. And like, my boyfriend, for example, loves to like the team spirit and like working in a team and like all of that stuff. I'm like, fuck that shit. And he loves like structure, like he loves to know, what do I need to do? And like, blah, 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 blah. And like, his mind very much works in that way. And for me, I'm like, nope, that's amazing that you love that. He definitely keeps me grounded, right? And a lot of the times when I'm like, woo, let me go do all these things. And he's helpful in like, giving me like what his perspective, but for me it was like and I can use all the human design and astrology terminology, but in general just like I just knew about myself. I was somebody that needed freedom, that needed to like have the creative freedom in particular, like creative autonomy, like what do I want to do right now, what do I want to create, and just like needing to have that lack of structure so that I can create my own structure. That was really, I just knew for forever. And then human design and astrology like really validated that for me. But it was just, I knew deep within that was like what really fulfilled me, was like just what do I want to do, what do I want to create, right? I love to create things. So yeah.
That's awesome. No, that's so incredible. And it's nice to kind of like see that you were able to recognize that intuitive kind of ping almost way before, and then it was just confirmed with all of these incredible tools. What happened when, okay, so you had your rock bottom, you were an Apple, you were still kind of playing with other things, but now you were like, I'm going to start this for myself. How did that look like? Because I feel like, at least that's the way that I view it. Sometimes we see someone like Lacey Phillips, to use someone very specific. She has TBM now, But it didn't start off like this. She started off doing like
one-on-one clients.
Yeah, but even before that, she was doing like private chefing. So it's like I feel like we don't see all of these like different things that lead you into this. And I'm curious as to kind of what was your kind of
definitely. And for anybody listening to this, it is never the full of like the perfect thing is what they start with. That is never, ever, ever what that person started with. And I coach on imposter syndrome, right? Like that's what many of my clients come to me for. And I'm like, you have not listened to enough podcasts about entrepreneurs being like, I don't know what the fuck I was doing. And like, like you need to listen to more podcasts because people, I promise you, nobody ever starts with that like full, like polished product when they start. But yeah, so here's how I started. So like, to take it back, just to give some context, the thing that I have mostly spent my money on is personal development stuff. That has been by far, and not everyone is like this, but when you're in that world, you're like, everyone's into personal development. That is not the case, so you don't think that it's something special for you. But for me, it's like, like when I sort of noticed that, I was like, what do I spend all of my money on? Personal development stuff, like any sort of stuff. Like I have done, 4-month-long trainings in San Diego, like I've done, week-long seminars and like blah, 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 all the books, all the podcasts, courses and memberships, like all of that shit. The other thing that I spent all my time and money on was business. I started online business, digital business, like all that stuff, So like, but really going back to like literally 14 years old, I decided to stop being Catholic. I was like, I don't believe in this. I decided to become a vegetarian and I started reading personal development books. Literally, I started to buy like philosophy books. So it really goes back like that far back. But what ended up happening, so I graduated, whatever, frustrating times, all those things. We can totally talk about my rock bottom after this or whenever you want. But finally it came to the point where I was working for my yoga instructor. So I had been training with him for a very long time. He was this amazing mentor to me. And I trained with him as a yoga instructor. So I worked for him at a studio as a teacher, but then I also came on and for almost a year full time to work as his like marketing person and like, website stuff, like, social media, whatever. And before that, I was working at a tech startup. That was after Apple. So after Apple, I worked at a tech startup, and then I worked at this yoga studio. But then finally, sort of like at the end of my time, with him, I had already like started to take on some freelance, graphic design clients and things like that. And that was sort of, doing well. By the end of my time with him, it was like, we were just on different pages about what we wanted to do with the growth of the studio and with the growth of everything else. It felt really all over the place. And I was like, I could just be doing all this shit for myself, kind of like what you were saying before. It's like, if I'm going to be doing all this work, like I might as well do it for myself. And so I just decided, I was like, all right, like I've gotten enough information now. Like I have worked for a tech startup. I have worked for a small business doing their marketing, and I was doing product management for the tech startup. So it was like totally other thing, but I was also doing sales at the beginning and, customer service and sales at Apple. So I was like, I feel like I have all the customer service, sales, marketing, web design experience. I'm not an expert, but I have tons of experience in this, over the last like 4 years. That's mostly what I spent my time working on in these other jobs. So let me just go for it. I was like so tired of like, working for someone else. I was so tired of not having that creative freedom and being like, this is where I think we should take this. And like, this is my idea. And then he would post on the Instagram and it was like, why are you posting? Like, I don't know what, it's like, it was like going in totally different directions. So I was like, I fuck this. Like, I need to have my own thing. And so what I actually started doing was doing graphic design. That's how I started to work for myself because it was easy. It was what I had already been doing freelance, on the side. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It's easy to sell because everybody sees the benefit of having a design. And like, it's very easy to sell. Like, you need a website, you need branding, right, for your thing. But after a few months of that, I was like, all right, I need to pay attention to what's really true for me, which is that I spent all my money on personal development. And that's the only thing I really want to learn about. And that's still really the thing I want to teach about. So why don't I just go ahead and start coaching now? So that's how it started. And, initially I was like, membership and courses and like passive income. And it's like, that's not really how you start. You start working like one-on-one with people typically, or like maybe group if you're wild. And so I started with one-on-one, and that's actually been really cool. And yeah, and along the way I found human design, but we can chat about that another time. But yeah, that's how I jumped in. First graphic design, because that's what I was already doing.
I love that you are kind of showing us how it brought you there, and you saw it in the yoga studio, you saw that you were doing it, but then it was also like, why do it for someone else when I can just do this for myself? And you took that leap of faith in yourself.
Yeah. And like, to give even more context to that, like, it was really because I was so tired of working at that company. And I was like, and it's not even because I was like, oh, I want to like work for myself. Like, that came a bit later. It was like, I don't want to work here anymore. I was like, I don't want to work for anyone anymore. Right. And then I was sort of like, in limbo for a bit. I got talked into, because I was in this like limbo place, to try to apply for jobs again. I was like, oh yeah, product management, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. So like for 2 months, I was like, maybe I do want to get a job, just a job that gives me more freedom. Yeah, product management, that's the answer, right? I can do sales, I can do tech, I can, all very MG style, I can do all the things. And then I ended up having a conversation, with a friend who was a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't coaching me, but it was just like a conversation. And she was like, well, what do you want? And I was like, well, I want like freedom, and I want to like, be able to work from anywhere, and like blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, do you think you could do that working for yourself better? Or do you think that you could do that better working for someone else? And I was like, oh, I can do that better if I work for myself. And she was like, and do you think you can create that? And I was like, fuck yes, I can. And so, that's really, it was like 2 months later, really, is like how I really was like, oh, I've been doing graphic design just to hold me over as I was like, because I just quit for him because I fucking did not want to work there anymore. And I was like just doing graphic design because that's what I already had, but it wasn't super intentional. Like, oh, I'm going to do graphic design to like work for myself, It was after that conversation a few months later, I was like, oh, I can just do this for myself. Yeah. And then like, that's when I sort of jumped, I did really hard graphic design full time. I was like, yeah, let me get a portfolio. And then I was like, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore. And then that's when I jumped into coaching full time.
So what happened in between there? Were you getting like people that were coming up to you and it was just like you were being pulled in that direction, or it was more of just like, I was putting all my money and energy into personal development, so it just seemed like the natural course?
Yeah. So in general, I already had a lot of coaching experience from all of the programs that I had taken, because you need to do coaching in those programs. You need to coach other people in those programs. So I already knew that I was a good coach. I had done this teacher training, this yoga teacher training with this instructor who, again, amazing mentor, just didn't want to work for his company. And then there was a lot of peer coaching in there as well. And he was like sending people to me because he was like, she's a good coach, like you should go talk to Maria. So that gave me a lot of confidence of like, okay, well, I know that I can do this.
Okay.
The other piece of it though is in 2019, yeah, so exactly 2 years ago, basically January 2019, I had a big breakthrough about like what I wanted to really work on for myself. And that came out of my rock bottom, so we can chat about that. But it was this idea of trusting yourself. And specifically the phrase that just kept coming up to me was trust and go. Trust yourself and then go do the thing. And then once you go do that thing, you build more trust in yourself, and then you go do that thing. So that's actually trademark now. Trust and go. It's my trademark. It's my jam. And I had started to play with that idea of what can I do with this, and like what could this be? And then at first it was like, I even thought of like relationship coaching because I was into that for a bit. And so I just started to talk with people, with friends, like girlfriends. I was like, would you come to, if I taught a workshop on this? I had a friend of mine, another amazing Capricorn manifesting generator, had this like women's networking group, and she had me come and teach a few times. And so like just teach about, I taught like vision boarding. I was able to teach like EFT tapping, just shit that I was into. And so just the more that I sort of taught this thing and started to ask people about it, more people were like interested. They were like, yeah, I want to learn about this thing. But so when I was like done with the graphic design and I was like, what do I want to do? Like with the coaching piece, like I just don't know what that's going to be. Like what am I going to be coaching on? I was like, oh, trusting yourself. I was like, trust and go, obviously. I was like, this is a thing that keeps coming up for me. And that was really nice to have that thing to sort of be like, oh, I've been like marinating on this for a year already. Like, that's weird. Not weird. Obviously, it was not a coincidence, obviously, but it was like, oh, I actually have something. I'm not starting from scratch necessarily, in the sense where I'm like, I want to be a coach. What do I want to coach on? It was like, oh, I had already been sort of like marinating on this idea for a while.
Man, I love that.
Yeah. It was a really nice place to start, and I still teach on that, and I think I will always teach on that, because for me, I'm like, if you don't trust yourself, like, what else can you do in life? And that's the first thing. Like for me, I'm like, is it biased that I think that that's the most important thing? I don't know, because it's like, if you really don't trust yourself, how can you do anything? Like, how do you know when to sleep and to eat and what to do with your life? It's like, you need to trust that you know best for yourself. And this goes back to what we were talking about with like Latina moms and stuff like that. It's like, that was something that I was told my whole life. I was like, I know what's best for you. And like, I know you better than you know yourself. Like, I know, bitch, you're not in my fucking mind. You're not in my mind. I know myself better than you know me. Like, it was made me so mad, And it's like, yeah. And that would cause me to doubt myself. I'm like, oh, well, I guess you know better than me. You know me better than me. So I guess I should stop listening to this intuitive hit that I keep getting. And we're taught so much to ignore our intuition as women, and to doubt ourselves so much, and we get gaslighted so much. And not just women, anyone who's not a white man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right now you just hit such a core thing for me, because it's been my theme for the last, I thought I had worked on it, and I was like, yeah, I trust myself. And I trust myself. And then I realized I trust myself as long as my mom is going with what I'm thinking. The minute she starts to question, I start to question myself. And I want to know more about your rock bottom, because right now I'm not in a rock bottom. I'm in a magic dark. And everyone's heard about Lacey's Phillips terminology, but for those of you that are now just listening to this, essentially, I'm in a state of surrender without zero clarity on where I'm going. And my lease ends on Saturday.
Wow.
We're in Mercury retrograde right now. My sun signs in Gemini, so this is like real interesting right now. And my mom, literally on Monday, she was like, I don't know what you're gonna do, because I had asked her, I was like, hey, worst comes to worst, can I just keep boxes in your spare room? Yeah, it's totally fine. On Monday, she's like, you know what? Since you don't want to listen to what I'm doing, and I was like, the entire time, I'm like, oh my God, you think I'm still in high school and this is gonna work? But she essentially, her way was, I'm gonna cut you off from anything that I can help you with. And I had this moment where I started to like freak out, not because I need her to give me anything, but I was like, wait, you just changed my entire plan. Like, this throws in a variable I wasn't expecting. And I started to question myself. I was like, wait, is this like a sign that I shouldn't, like, wait, like I really got into my head and didn't back down. I was like, nope, you know what? If I have to throw everything away and just stay with what I can fit in my car and my cat, then that's all I'm going to do. Like, who cares? I got a check. So, by the way, my bank account right now is at $12 because my FU fund is gone. So I got a check from selling my car. This check they sent to me 2 years ago. For some reason, it's getting here now. I'm not going to say the amount because it's beside the point, but I was like, okay, thank you for confirming my trust muscle. But it doesn't mean that everything has gotten easier, because she's still like,
yeah.
And I had to take a step back and realize this was a gift, because it made me realize how much I lean on that. I know you more. I've known you since you were little. I know everything about you. And I had to kind of realize and be like, actually, you don't, because what you think you know,
25
or
years
the
with myself.
programs that you've given me, but that doesn't mean like it just, I had this like, just like, no, you don't know me more than I know me. Like, and it was listening to her just say everything. I was like, wow, you really think I haven't grown in the last 3 years? Then you don't, like, it was this just, I needed to go through that. So I'm curious as to what your rock bottom was and kind of how you processed what I'm processing now that I wish I would have processed 3 years ago.
Yeah, and my rock bottom definitely like has like my mom was like a good part of it, and like not a great part of it either. So yeah, that's super interesting. And the fun thing that I bet happens to you as well is you're like you tell them like, you really think I haven't grown? Like, of course you've grown. I'm like, but you don't treat me like that. Yeah. We have the same mom.
Oh man, Venezuelan and Colombian moms could just be put into the same margin and sold off.
Yeah. No hate to like Venezuela or Colombian moms, but like, there's a particular flavor of like trauma.
Oh yeah, they feed off of it. Wait, I'm curious. What's your mom's sign?
She's a Libra.
So is my. I was about to say. I'm like, I have a feeling they're the same sign right now.
Yeah.
All right, cool, great. All right, go ahead. Just tell me about your mom right now.
So my rock bottom. What a wonderful time. And I actually just recently did some like cord cutting work around this again, because not that I felt it, but then I saw something that made me think about it. And I was like, oh, I need to do something about this. Anyways, so let's get into it. So I start working at Apple. Apple was amazing. Apple was so fun, right? Like just getting out there talking about products, like that was so easy. Apple products sell themselves. If you guys didn't know this, there's more business done in every square foot of Apple than in every Target combined. Like that is how fast and how well those products sell themselves. It's insane. So it was very fun. It was very easy to sell those products, right? And it feels like high school because everyone is like retail and they all have like little lockers and whatever. So it felt like high school in the sense that I was like, oh, shiny new toy, like, the new girl, like whatever. And, I was getting a lot of boy attention. That was nice because I had very low self-worth because I graduated from a top university, top of my class, honors with, published papers. And I was working at a fucking Apple store part-time, like big ego hit, very low self-worth. Like I was really like, my worth is on my job. And like, it's so stupid. But it's really true for so many of us. And like, I still deal with it with this, but really like so much of all of my self-worth was really hinged on that. So it was really nice to be getting like boy attention and all that stuff. And then this particular boy, man, whatever, I hate to call him a man because I don't know if I would call him a man, but this particular boy, like it was so weird how he introduced himself to me. He was like, how's yoga going? And I was like, how do you know that? And I realized that he and I had been in the same yoga project like 2 years before that. Like he had filmed me teaching a class for another yoga studio. He was the camera boy. And then he ended up doing that class and saying that his knee felt better after doing that class. And I used that story for years to validate the knee movement that I would teach. So, because I was like, oh, this guy who did soccer, like, he did my class and like his knee always hurt. And after doing this exercise, his knee felt better. And so when he said that and introduced himself to me like that, I was like, oh my God, like we're like reconnecting, like so stupid. Like, oh, like we're like this like connection, like, oh my God. It's not stupid. I know I'm saying it's not stupid. And if you know anything about gene keys and like, karma and you're attracting the right people to teach you the lessons, like that was how that happened for a reason, obviously. But my brain back then was like, oh my God. So we started like hanging out, becoming friends. And after a while we start dating. And it was like all the red flags, right? Like one day and I love you, like you're my like princess, I want to marry you, you're the love of my life, like all of this stuff, just like feeding all of this like low self-worth that I had, right? My love language is words of affirmation. And he was giving all the words of affirmation, like so just like feeding all this stuff, right? And my parents were like, what the fuck? Because I was living with my parents, and they were like, what the fuck? Who the fuck is this guy? Like, who the fuck is him? Like, we don't know who this fucking guy is. Like, he's not from the US. And they were like, how did he come here? Like, we don't, like, he's like giving off really creepy vibes. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know, not because my parents are like against immigration, we're immigrants, but they were just like, everything is off about his story, like everything about how he works here, about how he came here, like everything is off. Like, and you know, I spent 2 months in this like reverie of like, oh my God, this guy, and like whatever. And my mom, right at the end of those 2 months, she kept being like, you need to find out about how he came to the United States. Like, you really need to find out, like, how did he come here? And I was like, why do you keep asking that? And so I would ask him, and he had these like really weird stories. He was like, oh, my dad was like a diplomat. And then I was like, really? And then he was like, yeah, he came to the US so many times, they offered him a passport. And I was like, that doesn't seem correct. Like, I feel like the US doesn't offer anyone passports. I was like, no. And so, and like, you know, in that third month, my mom kept asking, she's like, just ask him, just ask him. Finally, like, I asked enough times that it got weird. Like, he kept giving me weird stories. And then other things were happening. He would be lying to me. Like, he would like say he was somewhere, but he had shared his location with me, and I could easily see that he wasn't there. You know, he was like hours late to so many things that we would do together. Like, I never went once to his apartment, you know, like, you know, which I was able to justify because, oh, my parents are Catholic, and like, I'm not allowed to be in his apartment anyways, like whatever. But then, so I didn't see how big of a red flag that was. Finally, my mom just like hits it with me. She's like, so I had, you know, I had him looked into, and he's married to someone else. And I was in such a state of shock that I was like, that's so funny. Like, I was like, that's hilarious. And she was like, no, really, like, he's married to someone else. And I was like, okay, like, show me, Mom. And so I looked at the girl's profile. She had his last name. And the funny thing was, I had paid for like a data broker. You know, those like weird websites that you pay like $20 and you like can look up everyone's data or whatever, because she kept pushing me. And I had seen this girl's name. But I was like, but she was 27 years older than him, and she was like Hispanic, and like, and he's Egyptian, and he was, you know, and he was from Egypt. I was like, there's no way this like 40-something-year-old woman is married to him. Like, what the fuck? They were married. And I don't know the full story, like, of like, he told me all this bullshit, like so many fucking, like, whatever. Like, his car was registered to her address. He told me everything. Like, they had joint bank accounts. His T-Mobile was registered. Like, all this shit was because he just, after I called him out on it, because he never admitted to it. After I called him out, all the things came out, right? But the real rock bottom was not like, I lost like my love or whatever, right? Because like, we ended that whole thing and it was done like this. I moved, I left the company, very traumatic experience. I like had to leave, like, it was like all this like crazy shit, right? The real rock bottom was like, I am so stupid. I am so stupid. All the red flags, I didn't believe. Like, and I never like fought for a guy before, like my parents, like, never been like, he's great, you know? Like, I'd never done that. And I was like, no, he's great. Like, I love him. Like, well, so it's like, I had fought for this person. I stuck my neck out for this person. Like, and it was like all a lie. Like, talk about a rug pulled out from under you moment. You know, it was really like, it's like, I'm not trustworthy. I can't trust myself. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so stupid. Like, you know, it was really like, and I didn't know that that was what it was, that I didn't trust myself, but that was really what it was. It was like, I couldn't trust myself because like, oh, the one guy I fought for, I was like totally wrong about, like everything I was wrong about, you know? And it was really this moment of like, I can't trust anything. Like, I was like, I can't trust myself to do anything, right? And this is why I say that my bias, but I don't think so. But it was like, what do I want? Do I want marine science? Is that even something? It was like, everything was up for question, right? Like, my reality was like totally up for question, right? Everything was up for question. And so the reason I say that my mom was great is because she like found out about it and like didn't let me go on for long enough. Like, she let me try to figure it out on my own for a bit. And she was like, you need to fucking, like, he's married, you know? But then she was really intense afterwards, and it wasn't so great after that. So there were some intense things there. But really the rock bottom was like, oh, I didn't see it. I can't trust myself because I couldn't trust myself there. So I can't trust myself anywhere, you know? So yeah, after working through all of that, is when that breakthrough came of like, trust and go. And that's how you need to just start. You just need to start like that. It was so weird. It was like, at end of 4 months in San Diego. This was the San Diego program. This was a year later, almost a year and a half later. It was a long time that I lived with like this, I don't trust myself energy. Like, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. But I did this program. And at the end of it, it was like, we did all these reflections, and all the reflections were like, trust and go, self-knowledge, trust yourself, trust and go. Like it was like, boom, 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 boom. I was like, okay, I'm listening. Like, I need to do this thing. But it was from that experience, and that year and a half of like, everything's up for question. I'm not trustworthy, super low self-worth for such a long time. Yeah. But yeah, that was the moment.
It's crazy how our rock bottoms literally light the path to where we're supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. And I always say that I'm like, obviously, like, I'm grateful for that experience because that's what led me to this now. You know what I mean? And I learned so much from that. And I really this is something I want to say to like any coach. Coaches are like, I can only coach on things that I was always perfect at. And it's like, no, like the best coaches are the ones who like went through the thing and then they can tell you how to go through it, right? So I trusted myself like my whole life, right? And then after, like, I read signs, like, all the things. And then, after having that moment of like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. It was a mini sort of rug being pulled out from under me of like, I thought this was me and I thought this was my thing. And like, oh my God, I can't trust myself. And I just kept spiraling into all these shitty jobs and putting my worth into my jobs and like how much money I was making and always comparing myself. I was not making a lot of money. So I was like always comparing myself to like all my friends who were like, oh, they work at like, a big 4 accounting firm and they're making all this money. I should have just studied business. What did I do? Like, why did I follow my heart to study marine science? What was wrong with me? And then it culminated in this moment, and I think that this is really those moments where the universe is like, bitch, pay attention. Like, wake the fuck up, and it was great. It was horrible and it was great, like it was obviously a terrible time to go through because in the moment you don't know what's next and you're in it, right? When you're in the magic dark, when you're in the rock bottom, you have no idea when it's going to end. You have no idea like how it's going to end. You don't know what to do to get it to end, right? But those are the moments where you look back on, you're like, that was a massive fucking lesson. And like, I'm so glad that I learned it, right? And I'm so glad I paid attention and I can sort of, because you don't always pay attention and then you get hit with the same lesson again, like I did a few times for a couple of years. But yeah, I'm grateful for that experience now, for sure. And it's all, it doesn't like, none of it, like, I don't get upset about it at all, like anymore. And it's just like, more like, this is so cool. Like I get to teach this now. I have this like whole framework and like I talk about self-trust all the time and like I really allow myself to connect with that again. And then looking at my human design, that's like what my entire human design is about, and it's like really interesting. So yeah, that was my rock bottom. It was an interesting time.
I'm just like literally seeing it all because we've been kind of talking about it all and I'm just kind of like putting it all in like, oh my God, all of this just happened. Yeah. I'm curious on like a few things. How you're in a relationship now and you moved to Germany because that's where he went back to. Did that pop up again? That like, do I trust myself or on this or not really? Were you in a more stable place?
So like what came up for me around that was the fact that I started learning human design and reconnecting with spirituality was a problem in the relationship because he does not see the world like that. And so for him, it was very uncomfortable because for him, things have logic and things, science is a thing, and so for me to be like coming out of the closet of like, because what you don't know about me is I used to be, when I was like, fuck Catholicism at 14, and then I was like all into the spiritual shit, right, for a very long time. Like I was like, I guess for 5 years, right? Like I was like super into all those things. Like when I was in college, the first couple of years, I would go to like Buddhist temples and like meditate there and like chant and like do all, like I loved it. I loved connecting with all the different forms of spirituality. I loved learning about chakras. Like Avatar is my favorite show. As anybody who's into spirituality probably would say the same thing. Avatar: The Last Airbender, amazing fucking show to connect you with your spirituality in a really fun way. And when I started training under my yoga instructor, he specifically takes out spirituality of yoga. His yoga style is purely mechanics based, purely anatomy based, purely evidence based, and that's great because it serves a lot of people that wouldn't take yoga if you were talking in Sanskrit during the yoga class and burning incense. Like most of normal people, not that spiritual people aren't normal, but like, you know, I'm thinking of like Joe Schmo in Houston who like goes to his Christian church. He wouldn't go to yoga if you in Sanskrit to him, but if he goes to yoga that is like anatomy based, whatever, he can actually feel better. And we're now serving a greater group of people. But I was so wrapped up into that I was like, oh yeah, spirituality is bad. I'm a scientist. Why do I believe in this? Oh my God, you know. So again, like sort of whatever. And I met my boyfriend during that time, right? Like at the very tail end of those like 6-ish years where I was like really shutting down spirituality for myself. And so when I sort of jumped into this world, you know, full time, basically a year ago, just before that, I had sort of started to reconnect back with like my spirituality. Like TBM was a great resource for that because she goes real into the woo woo, even though it's very like neuroscience based, it's still like super woo woo and like whatever. And so when I found human design like that, and I was like, so first he didn't know what it was, and then I mentioned that it was based on astrology, and he was like, what? He was like, no. And we were long distance during this time. We were long distance for almost 7 months. And so he finds out about this. And so for a few months before I even get to Germany, and this is like, I didn't even have my passport yet. Like I have a Spanish passport. So I didn't have my Spanish passport yet to even come here. So we weren't even sure how I was going to come here. And so it was like, wait, like spirituality and human design is a problem for you? I was like, I didn't know this. Like I didn't know that you would like be into this. And so the thing for me that I had to work through was like, okay, like what is my intuition saying about this? And for me, what I ended up going with, and I was correct, is like, it's worth it to come here. No matter how much disagreement we have about this, like we don't live together. It's a global pandemic. I haven't seen him in a long time. He's stressed out. I'm stressed out. Of course, we were having incredible, intense stresses about this thing that we now find a disagreement about. And in particular, if you know anything about human design, he has the gate of extremes, and so he was very extreme about it. He was like, we have nothing in common. And I was like, no, we do have a lot of things in common, just not this one thing. You know, but I was like, no, there's something pulling me here. I was like, I still want to come here, you know what I mean? And we're doing amazing. Like coming here has been a million times better than when we were apart. And he makes human design jokes now, and he's like, "Oh, manifesting generator." And he doesn't believe it, and he makes fun of me all the time. But he jokes around because he's also an MG, so he'll joke around about it. He's like, "Oh, do you have the gate of like snoring?" Because like I snore, you know. And so it's really funny. He doesn't like. He still thinks it's bullshit, you know. But he's so much more like supportive and like open to me like doing this stuff. And like I work now with a human design business coach, and he was like, okay, I guess, like, if you want to do it, you know, versus before you were like, no, like, you can't, you know, so it's been a million times better, you know, and so I knew that I could come here, that I would be fine moving here, that I would be okay, that I could trust myself to have my own back, because that's really what trusting yourself is, to have your own back when it goes well and when it doesn't go so well. I knew that there was something pulling me here. And it's like a perfect relationship, obviously, like we have arguments and whatever, but like a million times, like so connected, like we have so much fun together, like all the bullshit from like being on the phone disagreeing about human design, like all that is gone, you know, so yeah, that's what came up for me there, and I need to trust my intuition to come here.
Wow, that's so interesting that like that came up. And I want to like ask more about that, just because what about your family? How are they with spirituality? And this is going to pivot into my next question. That's why I'm asking.
So my older brother is studying to be a priest.
Ooh, so they're like very into like the church.
Yeah, my family is extremely Catholic.
Okay. Oh my God, this is perfect that I have you in front of me right now. How do you navigate that? And I know this goes back to having a lot of self-trust in yourself, but like, you can't share something that's such a big part of your life with your family because they don't understand. And then the person that you're spending your life with at the moment, and I'm saying at the moment, not because of anything, but just because I'm very like,
Yeah, no, I know.
people don't
No,
belong to you. Yeah. So like at the moment, right? How do you not, and this goes back to like imposter syndrome and all of that, but how do you not question yourself, or not even question yourself? How do you not feel like it's like, dude, you don't respect me? I mean, that can also go back to not respecting yourself. I'm answering my own question right now.
Yeah. So when I would approach my parents about things like personal
Mm-hmm.
development courses I was taking, I was insecure about that. And so they would question that and they would be like, blah, 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 is that your new religion? You know? And now that I'm like, no, this is my thing. And I feel so grounded in it. And just like, I fucking love this shit. And I think it's so fucking cool. Like human design is so fucking cool. I'm about to come out with more human design offers and all these amazing things. I just love creating stuff about it. And it's just like so fucking helpful for life. And they same as my boyfriend, they sort of like joke about it. They're like, what does it mean that I'm a generator and blah, 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 like whatever. They don't care. And they've expressed concern. Like my brother, and here's the thing, what they expressed concern about is that I jumped in really quickly, right? As an MG. And it's like, well, I know that about myself. And then I tell my brother, I'm like, but it's not that you know that about me. Like I've always been like that, like why is that concerning for you? When I find something that I'm interested in, that's what I do. My older brother, who's studying to be a priest, he was like, oh, this is against the church, like duality, like dualism, like blah, blah, blah. But we fucking love each other, So we're good. And I've said mean shit about him, about the church to him, and he says mean shit about shit to me. And then we come together and I'm like, I'm sorry, I disrespected and said that Jesus was magic. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. And like, and all these things. And I asked him about, what he's doing. And we spent a week, at the seminary with him and the boys, for Thanksgiving. And the motherfucker, I was at church twice a day, daily, okay? And I do not believe in many of the Catholic Church's teachings, but I support him, and my brother supports me. And he's like, what are you doing with this? And you're like, my mom told me you're doing a coach. How's that going? And blah, blah, blah. And we don't necessarily talk about human design, but we support each other and we love each other. But it really comes from what you were saying of like, well, I'm grounded in it. And I know this to be like my truth right now, right? Because it's not truth forever. The one truth, it's like, well, this is what's true for me right now. This is what's calling to me right now. This is what I'm interested in right now. But the other thing about that is I find other people who believe in it to support me, right? You can't expect, I have to always tell myself, like, my partner's not going to fulfill all my needs, right? And so if I want to talk about channeling Archangel Michael, I'm not going to talk to my boyfriend about it, I'm going to find my friends who are into that shit, and we're going to talk about that together. And I will tell him some stuff, and he thinks I'm crazy, but it's okay, He thinks I'm crazy about those things. He's like, you really think that that's real? Like, it might seem real, doesn't it? I'm like, it's real, but you don't have to agree with me. It's okay. And then we can just joke about it, because I'm like, I don't need you to believe in this for me to believe in it, Like, the sky doesn't need you to think it's blue for it to be blue, It doesn't need you to believe in it, right? Like, it's real for me. So, you're obviously not the person I'm going to geek out about it on, but I'll share with you every once in a while. You'll look at me with kind of a weird face, and that's okay. Most times he's not looking at me with a weird face, but most times everyone's chill and they ask questions and they're courteous about it. But obviously it's not their jam. Just like I don't want to talk about cars and football all day. I'll listen to you, but like I'm not going to geek out about it with you because that's not my thing. Definitely finding community that actually is supportive in this and is into this. Has been really useful because like not only does it help enrich my life to have more friends that we have similar interests, it's like I can also have friends that support me on the spiritual journey and the things that we're doing. So definitely, if that's you, if your family and boyfriend do not believe in or partner do not believe in the things that you're doing spiritually, go find some friends that do. There are plenty of us.
I really wanted to kind of dive in on that just because I feel like there is a lot of people that have that, especially being Hispanic. You grow up, like my mom's not religious or anything. And it's actually interesting because when my grandma died when I was 6, I thought the only way to connect with her was to go to church. So I kept like, I've had this pulling to something, but it was never organized religion, because when she would take me, I would tell her, I'm like, isn't it weird that no one's listening to that guy talking? And she's like, that's why I don't come to church. And I'm like, but then how do I connect with my grandma? I was like this 6-year-old, like, but then how do I connect with this? And I kind of look back now and I'm like, if she was more open to her own psychic and energetic gifts, but I think there's also a lot of like stigma and stereotype based on her own thing where she repels it, because, and I kind of struggle with that with her now, where she'll tell me, she's like, "Ay, Andrea, you can't just believe that because the bird is talking to you." And I'm like, Mom, do you remember when you told me not to do something because you had this inkling that something was going to happen, and then I didn't go on it and you were right, the thing happened? Yeah. Why? What do you think all that was? So it's interesting how it's all there, but she's been so programmed to not pay attention to it and judge it. Almost, it's crazy. You can't have logic. You can't make a life out of that. So I love asking people that are in similar kind of boats how they handle it. And I love that you kind of shared that it's more finding your own community and not necessarily having them fulfill all of those needs, because it's true. It's not their job.
And here's the other thing I want to say. You cannot have an agenda about making them believe, because that is the number one thing that is going to ruin your relationships. Like, and this is one of the gifts that I got out of working with this yoga instructor for so long. He supported me so much in my relationship with my parents. And this goes for what I was dealing with then, and it goes for what I'm dealing with now, or like what I dealt with a little bit with this human design thing, is like, they're never going to change. And can you just accept and love them the way that they are now, knowing that they won't change? And if they do change, what a surprise and delight. What a delightful surprise if they do change and do, open up to these things. But it's like, can you just accept them as they are now? And they don't need to be different for you to love them, and they don't need to be different for them to love you, or whatever. And then the second that you let go of that agenda, they let go of their agenda. The second that you're not pressuring them, like, and if you just listen, let me just read you your chart and you're going to agree with this. And like, if you just let go of that and you just talk naturally about your thing because you just love to talk about it, and then don't feel insecure about anything, then they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, she's talking about her crazy thing again. Who cares? My brothers all have their own thing that they obsess with. Like, all my brothers are obsessed with the game League of Legends, and in particular, my older brother, who's studying to be a priest, will weave League of Legends into every conversation. Then none of us care, but he loves it, so we listen to him. We're like, yeah, tell us about what Riot Games is doing now. Like, nobody cares. Yeah. Like, I have watched like so many videos about how those characters in the game are developed. I have never in my life seen the trailer of a game release. Not even a game release, a character release. But because of him, right? Because I love him. And so when you let go of that agenda, and I didn't know I had an agenda with my boyfriend for a long time, until like recently, until like last month. I was like, oh, wait, if he just lets me read his chart, he'll get it, And then as soon as I let go of that, it's been so much more chill. It's been so much more chill. I had let go of it with my parents, but your boyfriend, the person you live with, it's a lot closer of a relationship. So I still was like, no, he needs to get it. And then finally I was like, oh, what if he just doesn't get it? It's fine. How about that? That's way better. I was like, that's way better. Like, how about I just take that route? That's much more fun. So yeah, having an agenda is really never going to work out.
I love that. And I think that's such great advice for just anyone that's having any troubles navigating relationships right now. We're in such close quarters, some people are. So, it's a really great thing to just kind of stick with you. Just no agendas with anyone. And I think with that, it goes with not having expectations when you are connecting with people, and just kind of being present and seeing what gifts can come naturally without you trying to conjure things up. So I could literally talk to you all day, and I can continue this on. And I feel kind of bad because we didn't even get into human design. But I do kind of want to just a little bit for everyone that wants to dive deeper into human design. Can you tell us a little bit about each energy type so that they're like, all right, okay, cool. What does that mean? And then how, and I say this more because it's like something small, it's not this huge thing, but like as an MG, when I finally went down the human design world rabbit hole, and I was like, oh my God, I meant to dabble into 20 million things, it's okay. I stopped judging myself for picking things up randomly, or like I went down a rabbit hole for like 3 weeks where I was reading about like African culture, but like way back. And someone was like, what does this have to do with anything? I'm like, I don't know, but it excites me right now. And I really want to read the books. And I was like reading like a book, not a day, but like a book in like 2 days. So it was like, naturally, I was just like pulled towards it, but I stopped kind of trying to get results just because I was going down that rabbit hole. So I would love to kind of know about, just for other people, what the energy types, and what are like little things that are just like, look, you're on your path if you're here, and this is kind of saying, hey, you're so not on.
Yeah. So human design, just to give a context, is the science of differentiation, which means everybody is extremely unique. So though the types are super useful, they're every single type or every single person is just such a unique version of that type. Like we're probably 2 different MGs depending on the connection that we have in our centers and all of that stuff. So I just want to give that disclaimer because that's the gift of human design, is getting so in depth in your own energy. But the types, learning about my type also helped me to like be super validated. So yes, let's get into it. So there are 5 energy types, as you were saying, and we'll start with generators. And when we're talking about energy types, we're talking about aura types. Like what is the energy of your aura? So generators have something called an enveloping aura. So they're like warm, they pull people to them, people like want to be around that. I have a lot of generators who are always like, people just love my energy. And it's like, you don't have to give your energy away to everybody, but yes, people do love your energy. And the reason this is because generators have a defined sacral center. And the sacral center is a center of life force, creation, pleasure, play. It's the biggest battery in the motor system. And so generators have this generator engine because they're generating energy, right? This is the only motor center that when you're doing something that you love, it feels like you have endless energy because that center is recharging as you work on something that you love. So when it comes to generators, knowing that when they know that they're in alignment is when you're not focused on the outcome, like you were saying, and just focus on the project, and that thing is giving you energy and you feel satisfied, right? That's the signature of a generator, is satisfaction. So generators are really here generators are one of the types that do well with finding that one thing that they really love and going really deep. That doesn't mean that you only talk about blue colored tea all day, but it's like maybe tea is your thing and you do tea ceremonies and you do tea. It's like you can still have a lot of different things, whatever. And there's lots of generators depending on your type and profile. You might try a lot of different things, but overall, generators are one of those types that, because they have that consistent regenerating energy, they do really well with finding that thing that they really love that consistently gives them energy and makes them feel satisfied. And when they're not focused on the outcome, but focused on the project that they're working on. So that's generators. And you'll know that you're out of alignment when you feel exhausted and frustrated. Frustration is the non-self of a generator. And when you don't have energy, if you're like, I'm a generator, I feel exhausted, I'm like, yep, you're not working on something that you like. So that is generators. Then we have manifestors. So manifestors have a repelling aura. So they're like sort of pushing things away. And so why they're a manifestor, why they have this repelling aura, is they have a motor center, one of the 3, besides the sacral, right? Because they don't have a sacral center defined, but they do have one of the other 3 defined, as there's 4, so it's one of the other 4, defined, and it's directly or indirectly connected to their throat. So they have power behind their voice. And the throat is the manifestation center because it's the portal from our inner world to the outer world. So these are the people who have power to manifest new things. And so they are quite the opposite of generators in the sense that they don't do one thing forever and ever. They're here to initiate things and then start new things after that. They're like, initiate, okay, I'm done. Next, initiate, new thing, right? So they're always sort of on to the next thing. They sort of see beyond the veil. They see sort of the destination. They're more destination people. What do I want to get to? Because they're more manifestor, not generator. And they'll go through that cycle of like, I'm ready for something new. All right, I'm done. Ready for something new. I did it. Great. Okay, I'm done. Like they will go through these different things. And when manifestors in alignment, their signature is peace. So peace is like when they feel seen, right? When they feel heard, when people understand where you're trying to lead them, right? Because manifestors are trying to take you to that destination. So when a manifestor feels heard, like their voice is heard, and people are following them and people are seeing where they're trying to take them, they feel super in alignment. And also when you're honoring those cycles of like starting to work really hard and then cutting it off and resting, and then starting a new thing and then cutting that off and resting. So really when you're honoring that, you can feel at peace. And then when you know you're out of alignment is when you feel angry. So that's the non-self of a manifestor, is anger. And what I find is manifestors typically are really angry at themselves because manifestors all of us have been conditioned in so many ways, but manifestors have really been conditioned to like ask for permission and like you need to find that one thing. And so they hold themselves back a lot. They hold back their voice. They hold back what they're wanting to initiate. And so they're angry at other people because it's like, oh, you're holding me back, but really they're angry at themselves. So that's what I find a lot with manifestors. And then generators typically are frustrated at situations. That's where the frustration comes from. Okay, so those are the first two types. And then we have the blend, you and I, manifesting generators, right? So manifesting generators have that blend of that enveloping and repelling aura. So we have that sacral center that's defined, and then we either have the sacral or another motor center connected or directly or indirectly to our throat. So now we have that consistent regenerating energy that generators have. When we find something that we love, we can just do it forever, right? We have that satisfaction from that. But then we also have this consistent ability to initiate and start new things. However, you still don't get to initiate as an MG. You have to respond first when it comes to strategy, which we can talk about at a time. But manifestors are the only ones here who are here to initiate. The rest of us are here to wait a little bit. But manifesting generators, that's why we're similar to manifestors, we're like this multi-passionate, like whatever, but we have this other part of us that like we can have the regenerating energy to really do it for a very long time, right? And Mannies are like, all right, I'm done, rest, they sort of move on a little bit quicker. Manny gens spend a little bit more time in that particular thing because they have that energy. They can do a lot of things at the same time too. That's the difference as well. Like manifestors are typically doing one thing and then sort of letting that go. Manifesting generators are like, I'm doing a lot of things at the same time because you have that sacral energy to keep you going. And that repelling part comes from like speaking, right? You're speaking your truth and you're speaking, same with manifestors, you're speaking like, these powerful things, and some people are not going to be into that, right? And some people aren't going to be into that, so that's the repelling part. Then we have projectors. Projectors have a penetrating aura. So I love that word because that's my incarnation cross. So it's like, I always think of that. I think it's like, what is it? Like Pitch Perfect or something. And it's like, what's her name? The funny blonde, whatever.
I don't know who you're talking about, yeah.
And she's like, not a good enough excuse to use the word penetration. Like, is this a good enough excuse? Anyway, so they have a penetration. And projectors, like manifestors, also don't have a sacral center defined, so that's what distinguishes the types a lot. And they don't have a motor connected to their throat. So they have some centers defined, but they don't have sacral and they don't have a motor connected to their throat. Okay. And so what that creates is this ability to really, this penetrating aura where they see very quickly what somebody is doing wrong and how to fix it. There are the guides of the collective. They're like the system managers, right? And they see as systems very, very well. And so a very good example is Lacey Phillips is a projector, and her system is this like system of unblock, expand, pass tests. Yeah. But that's such a different system of manifestation that anybody else has ever taught you, right? And that's all she talks about all day. So projectors are the other type that do well with niching very intensely and that one thing that they love, right? They find that one thing and they're like, here's the system. They're really here to help a lot of people navigate through a certain system. When projectors will feel, it's kind of similar to manifestors, but slightly different. They'll feel aligned when they feel success and recognition. Okay. They want to be seen because they see very deeply. And so they want to be seen in return. And so when you feel like people like look up to you as an expert in your system and that they see you as somebody who could really provide valuable advice, right? Because like manifestors are here to lead, projectors are here to guide. And so they both want to be seen, but they want to be things. Projectors want to be seen for like, I have the answers to your problem, like I have the solutions, I have the advice, I have the system that could help you, like that's what they really want to be recognized for. And they'll find themselves being bitter when they're out of alignment because they're like, oh, I'm going to help you, but now you're not taking my advice. And so they become really bitter. And they tend to become like people-pleasy a little bit because they're like, let me do everything I can for you to help you. And then it doesn't actually help the person, or they end up getting like exhausted or whatever. And so it's just like bitterness. So that's when you know you're out of alignment. And then finally, we have reflectors. So reflectors have no centers defined, right? No energy centers defined. And so they're totally open. And I've worked with many beautiful reflectors I deeply love and adore. And they have a resistant and sampling aura. So why are they sampling? Because they're trying out all the different things, because they don't generate any energy on their own, any energy centers. When a center is defined, it's a consistent source of energy that feels the same to you every time. When a center is open is when you're trying out all the different things and learning how all those things work. It's inconsistent. And so reflectors are really those like sampling people who are here to sample all the different flavors of human experience, right? From all these open centers. They're called sometimes the shapeshifters because they can really sort of shapeshift as they need to the community, right? And lots of really cool famous reflectors. An example that you guys might know is Lauren Evarts from the Skinny Confidential. Michael Jackson, I believe, was a reflector as well, which is really interesting. I'll have to triple check me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was Michael Jackson was a reflector. But yeah, reflectors are actually, what's her name? Sandra Bullock is a reflector. Reflectors will find themselves in alignment when they are feeling the energy of surprise and delight, and when they're in their ideal community, right? So reflectors are like 1% of the population. They're these like karmic mirrors that are here to sort of judge us and see how we're doing as a community. And like in old times, you would know how the health of the tribe was, depending on how healthy the reflector was, because they're sort of giving us they're sampling everyone, and so they're giving us the read on how we're doing. So if you think of Lauren Evarts of the Skinny Confidential, she's giving us an accurate read about the trends of the day with health and with beauty, and what like she's reflecting for us how we're doing in those things. And it's really community energy, right? Like, how is the community doing? She uses a lot of like we language, like we love this, we love a good blah, blah, blah. So surprise and delight, because they have this anticipation energy that they're always going through. And they'll find themselves, because they can predict things, they'll find themselves out of alignment when they're disappointed. When they're like, I thought this was going to be really good and it sucked. And when they're in the incorrect environment and incorrect community. So those are all the types. There's so much more we could say about the energy types, but those are the energy types. The most important thing to know is what's the aura type, what's the signature and non-soft, which we talked about. And then what we didn't really get into is strategy. Each type has a strategy. So that's another thing that when you're doing your human design Googling, to go look at the strategy of your particular type. So those are the 5 energy types.
Great. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now let's say that someone looks it up, and I'll put all of this so that you guys can look this all up on the bottom of the info thing, whatever. But let's say that they're like, okay, this is cool. I want to dive deeper, and they want to work with you. What would be like the next step into this?
Yeah, definitely. So the next step into this is booking a reading, but live readings are going away soon. So I don't know what time you'll be putting this out. I don't think it'll be so late that it'll still be, they'll be available, but really the next step with human design, I think for everyone, is just booking a reading, because there's so many things to learn about in human design. And if you're learning about a bunch of stuff that is not yours, it doesn't make any sense, right? You're like, well, what does this mean about me? And it's like, it's not part of your energy, so you don't need to learn about it necessarily. And so really is like, it's learning about yourself and your own design. So booking a reading, you can book a reading with me. I'd love to do a reading. I'll be releasing some new things soon, so just give me a follow so you can see those new things that are going to come out. But yeah, really learning about your type and how you can apply your particular energy is the next step when it comes to learning human design. Getting a reading for sure. Not getting a textbook. Do not get a textbook. It's way too much information. Okay. Get a reading to see how your energy works. Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I didn't do that. I got the textbook and I got overwhelmed, and I just had to say, bye. I can't do this right now.
Yeah. Because it's like, what?
Yeah, I was like, this is just too much information for me. No, bye.
And it's like, you need someone to help you interpret it. Like, well, how does this apply to my life? And a lot of stuff is like, especially in the old, if you look at a lot of incarnation crosses, it's like I've had a few readings recently with people who have the incarnation cross of lots, and it's like, you're here to set the rules of the tribe, and it's like, well, how do you translate that to nowadays, right? And so you can having somebody who understands how to apply this information, like, so you can actually apply it in your life, is really important. So the textbook is great to learn, but not to apply and really learn about yourself.
For sure.
Yeah.
Maria, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I still have like so much more I want to ask, so I'll definitely reach out to do a part two with you. And maybe it's once you've kind of launched these new projects you have, so we can kind of check in with you and how you're doing there. And for talking to us about human design, I feel like it is for me. I'm an astrology geek, I'll say that, but it's more of just it's more digestible for me, but I keep getting called to human design. Like there's like some pull there. So I do need to kind of reach out to you and see if we can definitely work together over that. But thank you so much. Where can people find you right now to keep up with you on Instagram, to keep up with you on your website and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, my website has nothing interesting on it other than my readings. And if you want to coach with me, but all the good stuff is happening on Instagram. So it's by Maria Henning, all one word, no decimal points or anything like that. So just by Maria Henning. And I'm putting out tons of content all day about intuition and trusting yourself, human design, and of course these new projects that are coming out. And I'm super active in the DMs, as you can imagine. So love to chat with any of you if you have any further questions about anything you heard today. I always love hearing from people like, oh, I heard you on a blah, blah, blah. I'm like, amazing, let's talk. Like, I want to become your friend. So yeah, definitely reach out to me on Instagram by Maria Henning.
Awesome, guys. So now you know, go check her out, follow her. She's always posting lots of really awesome things on Instagram. And then one last thing, I love to why I can't speak today. I like to cosmically profile everyone. I know that you're a Capricorn. Do you know your moon and rising?
Scorpio moon and Aquarius rising.
Girl, I was like, there's some depth in you right now. I'm like, but I will say you're kind of balanced, which is nice. I mean, you're lacking that fiery, but you know, you're kind of balanced with your Capricorn Earth.
Yeah, I have mostly earth and water energy. I do have some Sagittarius. I have some it's Aquarius, like I was saying, like some air, fire, but mostly earth and water.
Ooh.
Lots of
It
Scorpio.
translates really great for what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's great. And if you know anything about human design, my conscious sun, which is gate 54, is in my chart 5 times. So it's Capricorn energy. So I have like really intense like Capricorn energy.
Incredible. Oh man, that's so awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure. Definitely drop a comment, start the conversation going. If you want a part two, let me know. I selfishly want a part two, but if you guys want a part two, let me know. I can't wait to connect with you guys again next week. We'll have another beautiful soul on the journey within. Guys, have an incredible day and we'll see you soon. Bye.